After all those 9-win seasons, Bo Pelini no longer has a job at Lincoln, Nebraska because the Cornhuskers are looking to win big football games and play for championships. To do that, they have to bring in more talent. National Signing Day is just a couple of weeks away. We bring in Brian Towle of Corn Nation of the SB Nation platform to talk some Nebraska recruiting. Brian, thanks so much for joining us as always.
You got it, man.
All right, let's break down this class. So let's start with the commits right now. The top guys, who really stands out to you? Who gets you kind of excited at this point?
You know, it's kind of interesting how the way Nebraska's really kind of gone here. They've been like a really up and down ever since the whole Bo Pelini, Mike Riley thing went over. Currently, right now, 24/7 Sports national ranking, they're a 32nd team in America, 5th best team in the Big Ten. They got out the way up to 3rd this weekend. Some teams got some more commitments and such like that, so it's kind of a flux thing. The best guys that I could see are the two gentlemen from Colorado, Eric Lee, the cornerback, and Avery Anderson, who looks like he's going to play corner safety. Both high-end 4-star guys, the number 1 and number 2 kids in the state of Colorado. Really something that Nebraska needs, especially in the safety area. They need the guys that be able to play well at safety. They had that issue. You know, they had one guy this year, Nathan Jerry, really help out in the run game and everything. But other than that, really not a whole heck of a lot of help on that. The other guys I'm looking for, the number 1 player in the state of Oklahoma is Jalin Barnett. Snuck this away from Oklahoma State, and even some of the southern schools like Arkansas and such. A guy that really hasn't played a whole heck of a lot in any games or anything, any All-Star games or anything. He played the all Under Armour game in Tampa. Kind of on the radar. Didn't travel to a lot of camps and everything last summer, but you know, definitely a great big guy. 6'4", 315, growing a little more. You have the Davis twins, Carlos and Khalil. One's a defensive end, one's a defensive tackle. Both from Blue Springs, Missouri. They're twins. Missouri really one of these guys to visit, and Mike Riley and Mark Banker has done a great job of getting these guys to keep their commitment to Nebraska. They've pretty much friend-zoned, as they like to say, Gary Pinkel twice. The other kid I'm really high on is Christian Gaylor, the offensive tackle from the Kansas City area in Baldwin, Kansas. 6'6", 275, second best player in the state of Kansas. It's going to be really, Nebraska kind of needs to make sure they hit really well on offensive linemen, especially with the way they're going to go to a more blended run pass oriented and like a pro style where they're going to go zone blocking one-on-one instead of maybe a little less zone read than they're used to do, but more than what Mike Riley and Danny Langsdorff, the offensive coordinator, probably ever run, because that's the way the team is right now. So overall, I'm pretty happy with Nebraska's class. A couple guys that could be really good that are kind of fringe guys right here. Stanley Morgan, he's a near 4-star wide receiver out of New Orleans area, St. Augustine High School. The hiring of Keith Williams today by the final hire by Mike Riley as their wide receiver coach out of Tulane. Really sit well with Morgan. Morgan was going to commit to Tulane, but Nebraska went on in the end. Best of both worlds. He gets to go to the school he wants and gets a coach that he really worked well with. So looking really good there. Other guy I'm kind of interested in, Dedrick Young, listed as an athlete, 7th best player out of Arizona. Arizona State wanted him real bad. He could go either as a tight end or as a safety. We'll kind of see what happens when he gets in Lincoln. There are some glaring omissions right now for Nebraska. Biggest thing is they don't have a quarterback. Their quarterback they wanted was Kevin Dillon, who's really a Denton guy in high school. Had issues with Texas UIL, could not get his transfer done correctly. He was playing JV ball, and now he's gone from being a quarterback in Nebraska to being a commit to North Texas as a tight end. So Nebraska's really kind of lacking in a quarterback this year. They did take one running back, Divine Ogzibo, out of Sachs High School in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Pretty good player. Not really kind of who they wanted. They wanted Kendall Bussey out of New Orleans, but Kendall kind of gave him the okey doke and, well, I like you, but I don't like you too. I don't really like you too. I'm going away from you going to Tennessee. So definitely some holes for Nebraska to fill as they come up to the last 2 weeks up to National Signing Day. Potential to be the 3rd, 4th best class in the Big Ten and possibly a top 25 class, which if you had told everybody this is going to happen after Mike Riley took the job at Nebraska, they probably would have laughed at you, but this could be a great boost in the 2016 for the Huskers.
15 recruits committed. You mentioned the ranking for, I believe it was 24/7 Sports at number 32, ESPN, Rivals.com in that range as well at 36 and 37. You may have already, Brian, mentioned a couple of the players that might be on the fringe, but I think you were talking about pretty sure committed commits to date. What's going to make this possibly a great class? What's going to make it a top 25 class? Who are those guys that are on the borderline that you'd like to see come in the door?
Good question. Mark Banker kind of ran into a lot of people that they want to take a lot of linebackers in this class. There's going to be roughly 21 to maybe 22 kids in this class, and right now Mark Banker kind of wants to take as many linebackers. And I think if he could honestly get 6 linebackers in this group, that would just be great for him. That sounds like a lot. Right now, they only technically have 1, maybe 2. Depends on how bad you want to put everybody. There's a kid right now. The biggest target right now is Adrian Towle, linebacking guy who really kind of looks good for Nebraska, but is starting to get a lot of blown up offers, different places. I remember Michigan won some of them like that. Also, the big deal with Nebraska, speaking of Michigan, is 3 guys that are committed to Nebraska are being targeted by Jim Harbaugh. Dyshawn Neal from Omaha, Reuben Jones, who's a defensive end that's been kind of looking around ever since Bo Pelini left, and tight end commute Matt Snyder. And it's kind of an issue that it's a good issue, I guess, that Jim Harbaugh is deciding to fill his class off what Nebraska's aiming at. But at the same time, you want to be able to keep a lot of those guys. Big guy they're looking for, Therese Hall at Lithonia, Georgia, Martin Luther King High School. Pretty decent 3-star, almost 4-star. Nebraska's aiming for him big time. Another kid that they want to look at is cornerback Willie Sykes. Happened to just commit to Washington State literally yesterday, but he is visiting Lincoln out of the Houston area, Spring High School. One more kid you want to take a look at is Kansas State commit Muhammad Berry. He's a middle 3-star guy, something that guy in Nebraska wants really bad. He's been looking around. I don't know if he's going to stay a Wildcat for long, but definitely somebody that you want to take a look at. Quarterback right now, there's really not a lot of guys looking at Nebraska. The one guy that we all kind of wanted was Joe Burrow, the 4-star out of Ohio, Mr. Ohio. His brother played for Nebraska, Jamie. His dad coached for Nebraska and coaches currently at Ohio University with Frank Solich. Long story short, the staff that was here before, Bo Pelini and Tim Beck, did do a very good job getting Burrow looked at and offered him, which is kind of ironic because Beck now is going to be his quarterback coach at Ohio State, and there was a lot maybe the Burrow could still flip a little bit even still, but right now he looks more like an urban guy. He's going to stay with the Buckeyes, and it's a little disappointing, but at the same time you understand what's going on with that. Other than that, there's really no targets as quarterback. They're only going to probably take the one running back. They're looking at a couple wide receivers. It's been kind of thrown around and such like that, what they're going to look at. There's not really any great offers. So right now, it's really kind of open in the next 2 weeks to see who Riley's staff can get a hold of and see who they can get to come to Lincoln, because the big deal is right now they have at least 20-some-odd visits to use in the next 3 weeks. And if you can get a lot of kids here, you can fill up this class, and it shouldn't be that hard. And, it might happen to where there's a couple fallback guys, and, fallback guys on a staff that's only had 2 months is, if they're better than most teams, then, we'll live with that. And 2016 is looking to be a better year for, start getting set up with a lot of people. Riley's talked about hitting the state harder. He's talked about hitting the JUCOs harder. A lot of places that Nebraska didn't go. Jalin Barnett's the first guy to get from the state of Oklahoma since 2005 when Philip Dillard came from Tulsa Jenks High School. That's pretty interesting there. I don't, maybe Bo didn't want to deal with Bob Stoops too much, but that's just kind of interesting to hear that, and it's really amazing how much talent you can get out of Oklahoma. I mean, it's not the best state in the world. It's not like Texas-wise, but definitely you can get something out of there.
Hey, Brian, I think a lot of people get caught up in looking at who their school is targeting and then seeing the other schools interested in that particular player and evaluating or judging that player's talent or ability or forecasting their ceiling based on who's competing against their particular school. So if it's Florida State, Ohio State, some of the upper tier SEC teams, they feel good about that. If it's somebody else, then maybe not so much, instead of feeling confident that that staff can bring in not only talented players, but players that fit the system and will do the right things and stay eligible and play tough football. That said, I heard competition for some players with Tulane. I heard Washington State, a few others I can't come up with right now. Are you concerned that Nebraska's competing with maybe not necessarily the type of programs that you would think Nebraska would compete against for players?
That's actually a great question. Bo Pelini had a really bad habit the last month and a half of recruiting when he was in Lincoln, fighting for kids that honestly had MAC offers. You're fighting Western. You're fighting Ohio. You're fighting the Northern Illinois. You're fighting the heck, pick anybody in the MAC or the Ohio Valley or maybe an ACC team here or there. Nebraska's fighting with teams that they need to kind of fight to win battles with. The one refreshing thing that we've seen about Mike Riley and his staff, Ryan Gunderson, director of player personnel and everything like that, these guys are used to working, against really kind of weird situations and such. When they're at Oregon State, they're going against Eugene, the massive power that is Oregon Ducks football. The Nike labels, the million uniforms, the Phil Knight money. They had to get creative and get kids there. Did they do the best job of that? No. I think that's because things like facilities really kind of hurt them. I think fan base wasn't as it is in Lincoln. You can definitely say that. The budget's not there. But now, all of a sudden, you see these guys that have the money, have the planes, have the ability, to show off 2 full football fields on the outside and 1 full football field on the inside. They have a players' lounge that is better than anything you can get in most airports. All of a sudden, they have the budget. All of a sudden, they can get a hold of these kids, and they're not shut down to just the Californias and the Oregons and the Washingtons world. They can go recruit in Texas, Ohio, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, even. I mean, they can go west, they can go east, they can go southwest. So if they take what they're doing is they're taking that mentality and they're spreading it across to what they know. And it was kind of disheartening because you would get that every once in a great while from the previous staff. You get that probably from June to August from the previous staff. And then it happens is they shut it down until January. Then in January, it's find out, well, who can we snatch from Ohio? Who can we snatch from maybe Illinois? Who can we get from name any MAC school? It's easy to beat MAC schools when you're a Big Ten school. Maybe not so easy to beat like the Washington States, granted, the Michigans, the Arkansas, the Oklahoma States, the Oklahomas. But at the same time, you're going to win enough of those battles, and if you win enough of those battles with good kids, then your program's going to get better. And this is what I've kind of said. We're already kind of starting to see him on 2016 offers. A lot of these kids really going out to bigger time schools and getting hold of them early. And not only that, they've done a great job. Save a couple kids that probably going to leave anyway, like Dyshawn Neal and Reuben Jones. They've done an excellent job re-recruiting the kids that Bo Pelini had come. Really only kind of lost one big-time kid in MarkRogersTV that went to Ohio State from the IMG Academy. But when you replace him with Jalin Barnett, who has, star-wise and rating-wise, is a lot better player, maybe a little off, granted, but when you replace him with better players, there's really no way to be upset with that. Barnett's the type of kid that Pelini staff probably would have never even tried to gone after. Riley's guys, they just went after it, and they, the nice thing about like Ugzubo when he had the offer, they looked at him and said, it was a matter of, hey, if you want it, great. If not, we're going to move on to the next guy. And with Bo, it was like, well, mull it down, see what you think about it. There was never really any hard close. It's really refreshing to see the hard close and to see, that type of, what's the great word, there needs, you need to be with us. We're going to move on without you. There's that type of, we got to close every kid, every seat you can. They want to be with us, great. If not, we're going to move on to the next kid and the next kid. With Bo, it was like, well, both staff was kind of like, well, we'll see who happens to come in, and if we get somebody that really likes us, great. If not, no big deal. So it's really good to see. There's definitely a sense of urgency that you're seeing with Riley and Gunderson and all his coaches to get somebody in here. Is it going to pay off for 2015? It could. It could not, honestly. Nebraska could be going at some bunch of other kids that they may not be able to get, second-tier kids. But the second-tier kids have offers, things like Wyoming, Fresno State. Granted they're not Power 5 offers, but some teams have Power 5 offers. It's better than the kids that we're going to sign with Ohio. Like I said, Ohio, the Bowling Greens and everything like that. If that's if Bowling Green's your best offer, then why do you want the kid in the Big Ten? Not saying there's not good kids in that, but when your majority of your backup playing is kids who be playing at FCS schools like Coastal Carolina or North Dakota State, one or two of that's fine. Making the back 6, 7 of that's not a good thing. So definitely, Mike Crowley is bringing enthusiasm to Nebraska recruiting that we haven't seen, honestly, since Bill Callahan's been here, and everybody wants to speak bad about Bill Callahan. One thing he happened to do is he went after the big fights, and he may not land at every kid, but he got enough of them to make, you want a great example of that, and Dominican Sue. He went and fought Oregon State, and Washington for him, and guess what? He landed him, and it paid off for Bo Pelini in the end. It paid off for Nebraska football in the end. You don't need 5 million superstars. You need a couple good 3 kids, and you need a lot of contributors. If you can get contributors, that's when your recruiting class really helps. The problem with Bo is you had some contributors and a lot of guys who, in their 4th junior year, their 4th year as a junior, they're not playing. They've seen the ball. They've seen 5 snaps, and that's a bad thing. That's not great for your program. The more kids you get contributing, the better off everything's going to be.
You definitely answered my question concerning the impact that Mike Riley has had, Brian. You mentioned linebacker, you mentioned quarterback. Any other needs for this football team?
About another month, honestly. It'd be nice to have a little more time. I think we just got to live with it this class. If they get a quarterback, great. If not, it's not going to be the end of the world. If they get if they get some more linebackers, that linebackers will happen. If they get the right receivers like the Alston kid out of the West Coast that Cal wants, that'd be great. If not, it's not going to be the end of the world. The one thing that Bo Pelini did, he did a lot of redshirting. So there's a lot of kids that haven't touched the ball, haven't played it down yet in Nebraska that could be ready to go. You got a lot of kids playing the scout teams. You got a lot of kids that redshirted, especially on the offensive line, like Peyton Newell, DJ Foster, and such like that. So, it's not like it's bare. The one interesting to see is as we go along the next year or two. This is primarily a spread team. I mean, yeah, granted they can line up and play eye football running wise, and probably that's what Langsdorf and Riley want to do. But as far as passing, they're a 3 wide, 4 wide. Use the entire field type of team. Mike Riley kind of wanted to go like that, but at the same time, you saw what Langsdorf did with Eli and Eli Manning in New York with the Giants and what they had success with for a long time in Corvallis. So he's wanted to spread it out a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. He's mentioned he wants to make everybody happy here. He wants to use his part of offense, but he also wants to use what works for Nebraska. And sometimes, what works for Nebraska is kind of a mishmash of everything. And how recruiting, next couple of years of recruiting, it's going to be how does he go along with this? Does he keep kind of the same theory where we plug in and see what happens, or do we go to a certain type of style? I think quarterback, you're going to see a lot change. I think you're going to, Nebraska was really big on dual threats. You're going to see a pro-style guy here that maybe has a couple good feet. Most quarterbacks now have good feet, but you kind of want to maybe hit the Uber guy, that can get the 60% completion and still kind of run for 1,000 yards a year. I mean, those are few and far between. Nebraska had that. That'd be pretty good. We thought maybe Tommy Armstrong can be that in 2 years. Who knows? Maybe Johnny Stanton, the kid from California that's sat on the bench for 2 years, can be that. Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see, what happens far along the line. Nebraska defensively, they kind of have this theory of they're going to play one gap, they're going to play quarters. Cornerbacks are going to be really big. Safety is going to be really big for Nebraska. Linebackers that can come down and play in the line. The guys that can move. Safeties that play like linebackers. Kind of like a Nathan Jury does right now for Nebraska. There's going to be big. And it's not going to be the cover 2 hi hat. Keep a couple guys back and let's see him play center field. They're going to want hitters. So it's going to be interesting what happens. Offensively, it's going to be really fun to watch. Defensively, I don't think it'll be changing that much. Maybe just his body style, but body type of who they put where. But offensively, it's going to be interesting to see how, they treat a lot of positions. Tight end's going to be a great thing. Tight end only had 13 catches for Nebraska all season long. And last time I looked, Riley's tight ends last year in a down year caught 60-something balls. So definitely want to make sure that you get that going.
Brian Towle, Corn Nation. Nebraska currently with a recruiting class ranking in the mid-30s with 15 commits, 2 weeks to signing day. We'd love to have you back on, Brian, to wrap up this class after National Signing Day.
As if you got the IV of coffee, I'm good to do it because I'll probably need it.
We'll do it, definitely, Brian.
We all get a little tired about that time of year, so.
I am with you. So we'll catch up with you at that point. Definitely.
You got it.
Thanks, man.